You may be seated. Thank you. We're gathered here for the funeral service of Rex Glenn Baldwin. I am Bishop Evans, and I just want to welcome all of you and thank you for coming here today. I also want to thank Heather Bond and Autumn Baldwin for helping with the music today. The family prayer was already given by Ryan Baldwin in the other room. To start this meeting, we'll begin by singing hymn number 100, Nearer My God to Thee, followed by an opening prayer by Sister Autumn Baldwin.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful to be here today to celebrate Rex. We're grateful for him. We're thankful for his kindness and his care and the influence that he's had on all of us. We're grateful for his love all of these years. We're grateful for Jolynn, for her care and kindness as well, and we're grateful to have her with us. Please help us to feel Rex close to us today, and please help us to feel the love of our heavenly parents buoying us up and surrounding us. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Sister Baldwin. I'll now read off the program that we have today. We'll first start with a life sketch by Richard Baldwin, a son, and then we'll have some memories shared by grandchildren Mark Baldwin, Carolyn Baldwin, and Carter Baldwin. After which we'll hear a music selection by James Baldwin, a grandson, Be Still My Soul. We'll hear then from speaker Scott Baldwin, who is a son, and then a music selection again by James Baldwin, a grandson, How Great Thou Art. After that, we'll hear another speaker, Austin Baldwin, who is a son, and we will go to that point.
Good morning. I want to tell you about my dad. Rex Glenn Baldwin, beloved father, grandfather, son, and brother, passed away on October 13th, 2025. He was born on June 12th, 1949 in Pocatello, Idaho, the oldest son of Glenn Smith Baldwin and Lois Elaine Green Baldwin. Rex spent his childhood in Preston, Idaho, and Salt Lake City, Utah, going on to graduate from West High School in 1967. After a year studying at the University of Utah, Rex accepted a call to serve a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Buenos Aires, Argentina from 1968 to 1970. The time he spent there and his passion for the Spanish language would go on to influence his life for years to come. After his mission, Rex met his wife, Jolene Schwendeman, my mother, and while they were both students at the University of Utah, then they were married in the Salt Lake Temple on March 21st, 1972. Rex and Jolene spent 53 years happily married and raised their 3 sons in Bountiful, Utah. Rex was a faithful member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and served in many capacities there over the years. After graduating from the University of Utah in 1974, Rex spent his early career in advertising and sales. In the early 90s, he had the opportunity to return to school and make a career change. He went on to receive a second bachelor's degree in nursing and 2 master's degrees, one master's of nursing and one in medical informatics from the University of Utah. He spent his second career as a neonatal nurse practitioner, working 20 years between McCady Hospital, LDS Hospital, and the Primary Children's Hospital. Rex had found his calling in life, and his work had touched many lives of families and their premature babies. Rex's career in neonatology and his fluency in Spanish led him to take several humanitarian trips to Latin America with the LDS Humanitarian Services and the BYU College of Nursing. He taught local doctors and nurses about novel neonatology procedures and helped translate materials into Spanish. He loved these trips, and they were a highlight of his career. Rex was a thoughtful, kind, and loving husband, father, and grandfather. He treated others he knew the same way. He loved his family and adored spending time with them, especially his grandchildren. To them, he was affectionately known and loved as Papa Rex. One of the great love of Papa Rex's life was fly fishing. He spent many hours tying flies of his own, and he cherished the time he spent on the river, especially if it was with his grandchildren. Rex also had a great mind for trivia and facts, and he loved learning about and sharing his knowledge of U.S. history. Thank you to our family, to the wonderful nurses from First Choice Hospice, Bonnie and Stacy, and the amazing caregivers at Legacy House Memory Care in Spanish Fork for their tender care of Rex in his final days. Rex is survived by his wife, Jolene, his mother, Lois, sons, Richard, that's me, Austin, married to Allison, Scott, married to Autumn, 11 grandchildren and 3 spouses, and his brother, Blake. He is preceded in death by his father, Glenn, his sister, Rolane, and a brother, Glade. Funeral, that's us here. I wanted to write to you the story of my last real conversation with my dad. He had just a bout of searching for words in memory and wasn't, always sure where things were and how things were at the time. And this goes back, 3 weeks ago, and I'd spent some time, and it was during the baseball playoffs, and we talked about baseball a little bit, and I wasn't really sure he was following. And then I mentioned that the University of Utah had just beaten West Virginia, and that I wasn't aware that Rich Rodriguez was the coach there, and his eyes lit up. And he told me everything he could tell me about BYU football beating Rich Rodriguez. He told me about the record against him, the time at Arizona, the time in West Virginia, and how well BYU had done against Rich Rod over all those times. And that was a great light moment where he was there and present. We really shared that. And that, for those of you who know my dad and BYU football, that was a big moment for me too. So thank you.
I pretty exclusively have fishing stories, so that's what we're going to stick with. Man, this sucks. I always feel like I'm underdressed coming to church in general, but Rex definitely would have been okay seeing me here barefoot in a fishing shirt. So I think my work jeans are okay today. Most recent trip that we took was up to the North Fork of the Snake River in Idaho. Fishing was great. Hooked a whole bunch of brown trout, and Grandpa persevered through sheer embankments and climbing into a boat with his prosthetic and jumping up and down out of my lifted truck because that was the only thing that could get us there. He hooked me 7 times and caught 6 fish. But it was great the whole way. He would kind of mutter to himself and complain and talk to the fish, and then asked if he wanted to take a break, and he said, "No, you take this away from me." I don't think there's anything that would beat it for him. Other than just fishing, there's endless hours of just sitting and telling stories. He would go on about anything that I set the course to. On the drive up through Idaho, we went through Ryrie, a little 1800 something town that's been in Idaho forever. It was part of the founding of the state. And we drove past the cemetery, and he says, "You're related to everybody there." I don't think that's quite true. And I told him I don't think it was everybody, but he said, "That's close enough. I am." My brother and I moved around with my mother around the country a few times, and Rex and Joe made a couple of trips out to us in North Carolina, at least one. And first thing Rex and I did when we got there was we found a little charter to take us out to the Chesapeake Bay so we could fish. Generally a pretty normal, pretty exciting fishing trip. Lots of fish to be caught. But one moment in particular, we were set out kind of over open water. It was pretty still, shallow, not quite salt water, but not fresh either, over some brackish. And fly fishing involves a lot of casting and recasting and backcasting. And we're out for a couple hours, and on the backcast, he was getting a little frustrated with the flies he was throwing. So he brought his rod back and was going to give it one more. And on the way back up, his fly touched the surface of the water behind him and came back up and brought a vicious, angry needlefish with it into the boat with us. The thing was probably a foot long and had teeth like an alligator. It's kind of one of the once-in-a-lifetime things that is really cool to have been had. Back up a little before that, we ran away from my Uncle Brent's 50th birthday party to go fishing. I think we stuck around to say hi to everybody and steal a few slices of pizza, and then jumped in the truck and tore off up the mountain. And we were there maybe an hour and a half. The way I remember it is I buried a fish hook in the back of my head. Hard. We went to the emergency room, and there were pliers and local anesthetic and vice grips involved to remove it. The way Grandpa told that story, I think to save a little face for me, was that he stuck a hook in the back of my head on the back cast. just did. We spent about as much time fishing as we did tending to injuries, I think. Sometime between the needlefish and going to Idaho, I'm sure we escaped some other family function and went fishing instead too. There's up Weber Canyon, there's some switchbacks, little rental communities. Go rent a cabin for the weekend right by the creek and enjoy yourself there. And that's all public access. It's all road. So we ignored whoever was renting the cabins and went and fished in their water. And there's a couple of switchbacks on some really nice new paved road that we can walk down. Not quite big enough to get the whole pickup truck down and park somewhere and fish, but nice enough to walk, especially when he was on a cane or on a crutch. It was more than maneuverable to take switchbacks, but he wanted to fish so bad and decided he would skip the switchbacks and walk straight down the steepest part of the hill he could. I asked him not to, and he told me to leave him alone. And to his credit, he made it down one. The next one, not so much. He caught his foot on a rock or a root or something and spun a full 180 degrees and then fell. From standing upright to leaning down about 45 degrees, landed on his ribs, and then rolled down the hill. He was always wanted to make funny noises when he caught his thumb in a hook or stubbed his toe walking up the stairs or something. But it was pretty impressive, the Wilhelm type scream he let out going down the hill. We laid there for 15 or 20 minutes while he gained his composure, and I tried to help him up, and eventually another fisherman came and helped us back to the truck. And no fishing was done that day, but we were headed back home to Rex and Joe's townhouse in Centerville. And he didn't say a word the whole trip, except for about halfway through. He said, "Don't tell your grandmother." That was a good one. Okay, I've got one more, then I'm done. I must have been 10 years old. He got us a drift boat trip on the Green River. The Green usually flows somewhere around 10 to 15,000 gallons a minute, which is pretty fast. It's a deep, wide, and murky river. I guess they were doing some work on the dam, or the gate was open or something for the spawn, but the water was flowing around 55,000 gallons a minute, which turned some really gentle twists and kind of scenic boulders into like proper whitewater. I don't know if he knew that we were going to have as much whitewater as we did. But he got his spot in the back of the drift boat and was soaked through head to toe by the time we were done. There's one section where a boulder usually sticks about 6 feet out of the water, but with the flow as high as it was, the water dipped down a good 18 inches and then shot straight up and over, which is where we went. And more of Grandpa's funny Wilhelm screams ensued. We dropped probably 5 or 6 feet off the other side of the boulder and hit the water. Great fishing trip, though. Lots of brown trout that day. I've got a couple of pictures I put in the slideshow of him holding his assorted fish, and nothing put a bigger smile on his face than holding. It didn't have to be a big fish. It didn't have to be a trout. He'd catch a chub or a little whitefish while we were out fishing. It just made his day. Whole trip was worth it if he could see a fish jump across the water without catching it. And, he taught me to fish, and we spent as much time fishing, tending injuries as we did tying flies together in the basement. I still do. I tie a lot more than I fish. And it's something he and I are always going to have together. but it's okay. He's floating down North Fork of the Snake River right now. Every time I'm out fishing, I know that his hook is flying just inches away from my ear, getting ready to catch me. That's what I got today.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Caroline Baldwin. I'm Austin and Allison's daughter, and I'm grandchild 8 out of 11. I'm really glad and grateful that my grandma asked me to share some of my memories and my siblings' memories of Papa Rex. As my other family members have mentioned, my grandpa was a neonatal nurse practitioner for much of his career. He comforted and taught many families how to care for their little babies, including my own parents. I was born prematurely at 29 weeks, and I was in an incubator for the first 2 months of my life. Though I obviously do not remember this time in my life, I know that Papa Rex was a great help to my mom and dad. My mom has noted on her old blog that Papa Rex was their own personal NICU consultant and was always on baby duty when he came into town. His love for premature babies and their families built a special bond between us that will never be broken. Even though I'm grown up and healthy, I will always be a Papa Rex baby. When I was going into high school, I decided to pursue the healthcare track that my school offered. After I signed up for my classes, I texted my grandpa to ask about his education, career, and he took the time to thoughtfully respond and ask me lots of questions about my classes. Later that summer, I was riding in his truck with him up to Salt Lake for Grandma Lois's birthday party. I squished against him on the bench seat, and to pass the time of the drive, he started to quiz me on medical terminology. I didn't know most of the answers, but he took the time to explain what all of them meant and how they could be applied to the medical field. I don't want to go to medical school anymore, but the knowledge and thoughtfulness in his responses has stuck with me. He always took the time to get to know each of us individually and truly cared about what we were interested in. My older sister Rachel and Papa Rex shared a love of trivia and random facts. He and Rachel could get almost every answer right between them on Jeopardy! And she loved being able to poke her head into his office and just talk to him about all of his favorite topics. His wisdom was such a great blessing to our family and to many others in his life. Papa Rex was warm and patient with us grandkids. When I was younger, our family made the road trip from Dallas to Utah almost every summer. Our grandparents would wait on the front porch of their Centerville townhouse for us to pull into their driveway, and at the end of every road trip, I remember unbuckling my seatbelt early and not helping unpack the car just so I could jump out and run to hug Grandpa. My favorite summer memories revolve around being in their Centerville house, throwing stuffed animals with Sarah off the upstairs balcony into his lap, watching him tie flies in his office, and sometimes crawling under his desk to grab the hooks that he had dropped. And as my family likes to remind me, forcing him and Grandma to listen to the song Peanut Butter Jelly Time on a loop while driving from Dallas to Austin. And if any of you want to hear that song after the service, come find me and I'll play it for you. My older brother says that his earliest memories with Grandpa include Papa Rex being super funny and silly with Ryan in public, in elevators. And that just struck me that our grandpa was always willing to spend time with us and just be a grandpa, even if it meant being goofy. While these memories may seem small, the way my Papa Rex made me and my siblings feel is far more important. He was kind, warm, smart, and gentle. Even when he was feeling yucky or was in pain, he never hesitated to put us first, even if he was the one who needed that comfort and reassurance more. Now that I'm no longer a small child, I better recognize the time and sacrifice he made to be the best grandpa for all 11 of his grandchildren. I love and admire his tender heart, fun spirit, and how he always made it a priority to care for and love each of us individually. I'm so lucky to have had the best grandpa in the world. President Nelson recently said, "The only way to take sorrow out of death is to take love out of life." I know that it's okay to feel sad about losing a family member because it comes from such a deep love of that person. I love my grandpa so much, and even though it is hard to have lost him, I know I will see him again. Thank you.
I don't remember often seeing Grandpa cry. It wasn't that he didn't care, he was just a composed person. However, a few months ago, I had the opportunity to ask him and Grandma about what it was like to raise Scott, my dad. Of course, funny stories were told and compliments were given and some embarrassing things too. However, the tone of our conversation became a bit more somber as Grandpa talked about my dad's mission experience. What really impacted me is what Grandpa said. In that moment, with teary eyes, Grandpa talked about the courage and triumph of my dad in that experience. He talked both about how proud he was of my dad and how hard it was for him to sit there and feel like he couldn't help. Not just in his words, but etched across his face was the concern and love and care that defines who Grandpa is. In that moment, I couldn't see a broken man who affectionately nicknamed his amputated leg his nub. I saw a father whose heart had broken for his hurting son. I saw a friend who would give up everything just to help another. I saw Grandpa for who he is, a man of love. I think it's a testament to how much Grandpa cares about his family. For example, I never called him Rex. I never called him Grandpa Baldwin. To me, he is just Grandpa, Papa Rex. As one of the grandkids, I think that Grandpa wanted us to know that he is first and foremost our grandpa. Whatever accolades life had to offer, I think there was only one he ever truly cared about. He wanted to love and protect his family. This was evident in his profession. And while he didn't start here, like Richard said, the Grandpa I knew was a NICU nurse. He worked long hours and hard nights to help people through one of the most joyous and hardest times of life. He chose to help the most vulnerable people through scary times. He told me of the friends he made and how he still talked to some of the families of the babies he helped. And he told me the heartache of losing some too. But I think he found that his calling in life was to love and to protect, to serve and to care. A few weeks ago, as Grandpa's health was really starting to decline, I was able to visit him. Bedridden and hurting, he drifted in and out of focus, trailing on and off as he spoke. We told him about the BYU football game and our plans to come back and watch one with him. He told us that he'd like that. When it was time to say goodbye, Grandpa mustered the little strength he had left to say a few words. He said in his broken words, "Thank you for coming to see me. I'm sorry you have to see me this way. And I hope I feel better next time I see you." And while his strength wasn't enough to continue, I could tell what he really meant was, "Just remember that I love you." I'm convinced that Grandpa waited until he could see all of his kids and grandkids before he left. It wasn't even 12 hours after he saw everyone before his body finally gave out. He waited until he knew that he had seen his family and that we would be okay. Only then could Grandpa rest. Grandpa gave his life to those he loved. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Through all his years, Grandpa chose to help his family, his best friends. No one loved his family more than Grandpa loves us. He chose, above all else, to lay down his life for those he loves. After all these years, Grandpa finally gets to rest. His suffering has ended. He battled heartache and pain and just about every medical issue under the sun. Yet through it all, he chose just to love one more time. He fulfilled his calling. Some called him Dad, some called him Grandpa, some called him son, some called him nurse, one called him husband, and many called him friend. And regardless of who it was, Grandpa gave them his love. And now it's our turn to live his legacy, a legacy of love. He showed us how to choose to love just one more time. Thank you.
So as a psychologist, I've spent some time learning about grief and helping people through it, and just wanted to share an idea, whether it's grief today or in the future, I think you'll find to be useful. And it's when it hurts a little bit, I think it's best to maybe say to yourself the numbers 24 to 21. If you say that on the reg, I think you will find you feel a little bit better. Before I get into my remarks, my mom said, tell some stories. And so just wanted to tell a couple of things. One is, and hearing Richard's story today, turns out I think what made my dad the most lucid during the last few weeks was talking about BYU football, apparently, because really the last conversation he had, like when I was around, he never talked to me, but when Autumn would get there, he would. And we all, he always liked her more than me anyway. But he actually got all excited. Autumn was talking about the BYU Utah game, and his reply to, she asked him, what do you predict will happen? And his reply was probably the biggest clue that we were for the end, because he just said, it's got to be Utah. And so if you look at the program and take a look at the picture that's on the inside, that's related to how I would describe this story. So about 18 years ago, the Jeopardy contestant, Ken Jennings, went on a tear, right? And he just won over and over and over again. And then ESPN writer Bill Simmons referred to him as the Mormon assassin. And but little did Bill Simmons know that my dad was the original Mormon assassin. He was the OG, because we'd have dinner pretty much each evening, and just schedule wise, we were always eating at 6:30, which is when Jeopardy came on. And we had our little TV in the kitchen in that house, and he would just it's almost like he wasn't even paying attention, and he'd just be answering the questions. And it was my goal to try and beat him to any question, and I don't think I ever did. But if you look at that picture of him, I think it should say Rex Baldwin, Mormon, Jeopardy assassin underneath, because that just looks like somebody who's good at Jeopardy. Two more quick stories. One is my dad, he was a real earnest guy. And what I mean by that is he just was a sweetheart. He wasn't particularly sarcastic. Somehow all three of his boys became so, but he wasn't so much. And so he sometimes, he had a funny way of saying things in different situations. And when we were in 1986, we had gone to Southern California, and we'd spent an afternoon in Tijuana, and then we had gone to a restaurant, and the guy seating people was Hispanic and speaking Spanish. And so Dad was just when they asked the name, he just said Baldwin. And so then we didn't give him